Did you ever have an idea that you thought, yeah, this is brilliant, but then realize it's too unrealistic to achieve? Well, no one realized that in the show that we're about to cover today. This show failed in its concept, only to succeed in a completely different way. Sort of. Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future was that show. Now some of you may be wondering, what the hell is he talking about? What's so special about this show? Well, the series aspired to do something that no show did or has ever done. It made toys. So what, you may ask? Lots of shows have made toys. Well, it didn't just make a toy about the show, it tried to merge them into one entity. That's right, the toys interacted with the show in real time. How so? Well, let's get into that in this episode of Gone, but Not Forgotten. It all started with a name. Gary Goddard, the director and producer of the live-action New Gods, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Through this movie, Goddard developed a friendship with the people running Mattel at the time. He kept thinking about what live-action project he could come up with that would work with Mattel toys. After being involved in He-Man and watching G.I. Joe, Goddard began to think why there aren't any heroes from the future. He then thought about the shows he watched growing up and thought of a name that would harken back to those days. Captain Power! And to sell the series to Mattel, he added to the title, "And the Soldiers of the Future," to remind them of He-Man. Goddard appealed to Mattel's need for a new product, since the He-Man toy sales began to decline. Gary had some basic ideas of what the show should be. It would be set in a world in ruin, where the human race has fallen to the evil of a robotic race called biomechs. These evil robotic beings were led by the man who betrayed the human race, Lord Dredd. Captain Jonathan Power was the man who led the resistance against Dredd, with fellow soldiers who also donned the incredible power suits, with each of their power suits having its own superpower. Major Matthew Hawk Masterson, played by Peter McNeil, had a suit that could fly. Lieutenant Michael Tank Ellis, played by Sven Ole Thorsen, had a powerful suit that was more resistant to damage. And Sergeant Robert Scout Baker, played by Maurice Dean Wint, could take the form of anyone to be the perfect spy. The final member of the unit was Corporal Jennifer Pilot Chase, played by the beautiful Jessica Steen. Chase was the pilot of the signature vehicle of the series, the Jump Ship, that would be constantly in battle with the villains of the show. As for the more detailed aspects of the background of the show, those were done by the legendary Mark Scott Zicree. Zicree has a long career in writing on classic shows like Sliders, Mantis, Star Trek The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. Not only that, but he also wrote on classic cartoons like The Real Ghostbusters, He-Man, and The Centurions, just to name a few. But even though Mark wanted to be more involved in this show, he had too many commitments on his plate. So he turned over the show to a writer he had worked with previously, the one, the only, J. Michael Straczynski. To say that Straczynski has a legendary career is an understatement of mythical proportions. He has been responsible for such amazing comics like Rising Stars and Midnight Nation, both of which have rabid fan bases. He has written for numerous animated shows, and is more well known as the creator of the massively popular series Babylon 5. J.M. became the showrunner and helped steer the show into a series that was far ahead of its time. Captain Power started out as a simple show where the heroes just went on basic missions, which were only written to set up an action scene. It was pretty obvious that it was a TV show for kids, but Straczynski ended up shaping it into something that could appeal to both adults as well as children. The stories began to take on a darker and more interesting tone. You begin to see this shift in the direction of the show in the 12th episode, Flame Street. In this episode, Power is tricked into going into a virtual reality that Lord Dredd uses to try to drive him insane. This episode was very memorable to me because of the incredible acting from both Tim Dunigan and David Hemblen. Tim Dunigan starred as the noble Captain Power, a man struggling not only to win this war, but also to be a beacon of hope to the rest of humanity. David Hemblen, on the other hand, played Lord Dredd as a complex character. At the beginning of the series, Lord Dredd was just a generic supervillain. It wasn't until the 2-part episode, A Summoning of Thunder, that we learned Dredd and Power's origin story. Dredd was a scientist and friend to Power's father, Dr. Stuart Gordon Power. Dr. Power and Dredd created a supercomputer named Overmind that would take control of the world's robotic armies. Power wanted to use it to destroy the war machines to create a world without war, but Dredd became impatient and connected himself to Overmind, thus corrupting it. He became obsessed with merging the human race with machines to create perfection. Thus begins the Metal Wars, where humans and machines battle for survival. It's funny how much this show would inadvertently predict tropes that many future popular shows would introduce. While watching the show, I immediately thought of the Power Rangers, as the captain would do the morphing transition from the Power Rangers TV show. Also, the AI named Mentor, which helped Captain Power and his soldiers, had the exact same look as Zordon. I can also see the influence that other classic sci-fi shows have had on this series, like Buck Rogers and Doctor Who. However, the special effects were hit or miss. Watching the series, it was pretty clear that they used the same set and locations many times, because they built a warehouse that housed multiple sets for the show, like the Power Base and Dredd's lair, Volcania. They also used detailed miniatures for most special effects. I assure you, it was very impressive to look at.
It's only a model. Shh.
But the worst thing about the show was its use of CGI. To say its CGI was crude is being nice. It was so bad, it made the first season of Superboy look like Avatar by comparison. Yet, many people who worked on the show would wind up having a huge career in computer effects. Rob Coleman, for example, went on to become the head of ILM. And it wasn't just special effects that would lead to a huge career in show business. Straczynski said that cutting his teeth on this show directly led him to developing Babylon 5. Also, Jessica Steen would get her role as the shuttle pilot in Armageddon when producer Jerry Bruckheimer remembered her from Captain Power. This is a great way to transition into the most famous thing about this show, the toys. Captain Power tried to merge both merchandising and the TV show into one entertainment experience. Its main toy was a replica of Captain Power's ship. It was a light gun that would count points for the flashing targets you could shoot at in the episodes. If you got hit too many times by enemy fire, your ship would eject the action figure that was piloting the ship. Sounds great, right? It was garbage, and I speak from experience. At first you think to yourself, man, this is gonna be so cool, when a few minutes later you realize that you're not getting any points. So you have to shove the toy way too close to the TV for it to do anything. The worst part was that you could be shooting for points on the show, and then this would happen.
Data flow's a mess. What with the blast trauma and the loss of power, I don't know if we'll ever make sense of it.
Ah, what the hell?
My little pony, tie a ribbon.
Ah, crap! Okay, let's try this again.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
Ah, son of a bitch! Anyway, back to the show. The cast of Captain Power was great. They never phoned it in. Tim Dunigan played Captain Power as a man who struggled to stay hopeful in a world full of despair. Dunigan took his role seriously due to the effect that he knew his character would have on children. He would go to toy stores whenever he was asked, and said his happiest memories of his career was meeting the young fans of the series. Peter McNeil said he had a blast on the show. He got to fly on a rig previously used on Superman. He also loved playing a superhero and shooting at robots. He even still has the action figure made of him. As for Sven-Ole Thorsen, this guy is a legend in the film industry, with a long career working specifically alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger. He appeared with him in Conan, The Running Man, and my personal favorite role, LaFours, the security guard in Mallrats. I always felt bad for Thorsen because he had to wear the most uncomfortable costume on this show. It was the bulkiest one and gave him very limited mobility. Now, Maurice Dean's role was probably the most underdeveloped on this show. His character was just the guy who would go undercover to confuse the enemy. They could have done a lot more with him outside of that, but unfortunately, that was not meant to be. Jessica Steen's character was the most interesting role on this show, as she grew up manipulated by Dredd and his cronies. She was part of the Dredd youth and committed many crimes against humanity. At the time, she was brainwashed into believing that Dredd's goal of human and machine perfection was the only thing that mattered in life. However, when she met Captain Power, she realized the horror of her actions and fought with the group to make up for her mistakes. David Hemblen, who played Lord Dredd, was a veteran British actor who mostly worked in Canadian TV and film. He was an utmost professional, who took every role of his seriously, with a massive career in many TV shows and films, but most of you would of course know him as the voice of Magneto in the 1996 X-Men animated series. Now, a big focus of the Captain Power show was the will they, won't they romance between Power and Chase. We would wind up seeing the conclusion of their romance in the season finale, but more on that later. The action scenes on this show were pretty entertaining for the time. Lots of explosions, laser fights, and squibs that just reminded me of the Power Rangers. The goal of this show was to appeal to both adults and children. The adults would enjoy the storyline, while the kids would play with the toys next to them. It was a win-win, right?
Wrong!
Nope. J. Michael Straczynski said it best. The name Captain Power alienated serious sci-fi fans, because it sounded goofy. And parents were turned off by the dark themes of the show. The show began to get a lot of bad press from family advocacy groups, with their two main complaints being that the show was only made to sell toys and that it was too violent for children. Peggy Charin was the loudest voice of dissent against this show. Charin has had a long career of trying to censor children's programming. She founded the Action for Children's Television Group, also known as ACT, where she promoted regulations of children's programming. Charin did have some noble causes. She wanted to promote more educational programming and fewer commercials targeting kids. But over time, she just began to promote straight-up censorship of children's TV. Goddard said she tried to reach out to Peggy because he felt she hadn't even seen the show to make a fair judgment of it. However, Peggy refused to listen to him, and she just kept trying to get the press to shut the show down. It wasn't just Charin who did this, though. Straczynski said that they had someone else rallying against it, who told them they would stop only if they were hired as a consultant on the show. And once he did get hired as a consultant, he would end up never making any adjustments to the script. Now, Mattel was also going through a bad financial time, and had to cut corners to try and save the company. So all these things combined meant the end of Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. The last episode of the show was about Dredd discovering the location of Captain Power's secret base. So to prevent Dredd from getting his hands on it, Pilot blows up the base, killing herself in the process. This episode was not only memorable for the twist ending, but also because of a sad behind-the-scenes fact. During the episode, Power begs Chase to not sacrifice her life to destroy the base, only to have her profess her love for him and blow up anyway. Straczynski has stated that this was based on an incident with a friend who committed suicide, where he tried to stop his friend over the phone from doing it, only to fail. He says he can't watch the series finale without crying. So tragic. The show had a planned second season, which would have featured Power trying to avenge Pilot's death. It would have centered on the rest of the crew trying to talk him out of going down a dark path. New characters would have been introduced, such as a double agent who would have been Power's new love interest. But alas, it was not meant to be, and thus we lost the chance to see any new adventures of Captain Power. Sadly, the DVD of this series is now out of print. There is no place to officially stream this show. But do not despair. YouTube has yet again come to the rescue, as the entire series is available to stream there. As for the question we always ask at the end of the show, should this show come back? Well, I don't think so. The show is a product of its time. Many shows have done similar stories, and the toys are outdated. The technology is completely obsolete now. It did have a comic book adaptation, so maybe it could continue like that. But I just don't see it coming back again. I don't even think it could work as a cartoon unless they give it some new take that I just can't think of. But regardless, Captain Power was a show that was ahead of its time. It's a shame that people didn't appreciate it when it was still on the air. And I'm sad to say I was guilty of this as well. But if you're interested in seeing a TV show that paved the way for many others, then I recommend you give Captain Power a watch. So put on your helmet, press play, and get ready to...
Power on.
You will not regret it.
I've got a secret I've been hiding under my skin. My heart is human, my blood is boiling, my brain IBM. So if you see me acting strangely, don't be surprised. I'm just a man who needed someone and somewhere to hide to keep me alive. Just keep me alive. Somewhere to hide to keep me alive.
I'm Jesse Shade speaking on behalf of David Arroyo for JoBlo.com. And thank you for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our JoBlo Videos channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company that appreciates all of your support. And we will see you next time for the next installment of Gone, But Not Forgotten.